BJ Mafia, what's poppin'? So Jags fans, today is Monday, July 31st, which means that today is day 5 of training camp for the Jaguars. The Jaguars had set up a schedule of 13 open training camps for the public to go and attend. 12 of those 13 were going to be at the Miller Electric Center, the brand new facility for the Jaguars. And then the lone one is going to be at Everbank Field on Saturday, August 5th. And Jags fans, I was in attendance this past Saturday for the training camp day number 4. And Jags fans, it was a hell of a time out there, not only just seeing how incredible this new facility is. It's 125,000 square feet, the Miller Electric Center, 4 acres of land. You got 3 practice fields, 2 of them outdoors, 1 of them indoors. And the Jaguars just look like an absolutely real football franchise heading in the right direction, man. Big shout out to Urban Meyer, shout out to Frank Gore, shout out to Trevor Lawrence, and big shout out to Arden Key for also being a key contributor in building up that Miller Electric Center in the entire city in its totality. But in all seriousness, Jags fans, I want to go ahead and give you guys some training camp updates. I want to talk about the defense, I want to talk about the offense, and then I'll kind of give my final thoughts at the very end of the video. But I want to give a huge shout out also to all of the journalists and all the beat reporters that have been doing a terrific job reporting on the team throughout training camp. When you talk about people like Mia O'Brien, Jordan DeLugo, Demetrius Harvey, John Shipley, the list goes on. If I'm missing anybody, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that I'm missing, just want to give a big shout out to you guys because I'm not a credentialed media member for the Jaguars as of right now, all in due time, but I just want to give a big shout out to all the hardworking journalists out there that are doing their job and they're providing insight to all of us Jaguar fans out there. So I want to go ahead and actually talk about this with you guys here today, talk about some updates. So let's actually start on the defensive side of the ball. But the first guy I want to talk about on the defensive side of the ball is going to be with the guy that we took in the 2022 NFL draft, and that's with Gregory Jr. And Gregory Jr. has really caught the eyes of a lot of people on the staff and a lot of his teammates. He's been putting in a lot of great work at the slot corner position. And when you look at the Jaguars defensively, outside of Darius Williams and Tyson Campbell, both on the outside, that nickel corner position is really up for grabs. When you talk about guys like Trey Herndon, Antonio Johnson, Eric Hallett, and obviously Gregory Jr., Monteric Brown, and a handful of other guys that are going to be competing for that starting position there at the nickel corner position. I want to give a big shout out to Gregory Jr. It seems like he's been doing a lot of great work throughout training camp. The next guy's also going to be with someone a lot of Jaguar fans are extremely happy and excited to see watch play during training camp and throughout the preseason. Antonio Johnson. He was the safety that we grabbed, I believe, in the 5th round out of Texas A&M. I really couldn't believe he fell down that far, but he's been doing a lot of great things in coverage throughout training camp, and he also got a pick this past week on CJ Beathard. Moving on to the next guy defensively, Doug Peterson had a lot of great things to say about our cornerback number 1 from the University of Georgia, Tyson Campbell. He said that he's really stood out a lot throughout the first week of training camp, and we've seen Tyson Campbell line up across from Calvin Ridley and really hold his own. Both of these guys are terrific at their positions, and that's how you get iron to sharpen iron. And another defensive player who's been standing out a lot throughout training camp has been Devin Lloyd, who's going to be going into his 2nd year. He had a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of ebbs and flows throughout his rookie season. There was a lot of opportunities for Devin Lloyd to really solidify himself next to Foye Oluokun as the next franchise game-changing linebacker. But Chad Muma and him really interchanged a lot between those inside linebacker roles, and I think you're going to see Devin Lloyd get a lot more opportunities this season to go ahead and blitz the quarterback and utilize him a lot of ways that the Utes did at his collegiate level. Devin Lloyd's been doing a great job with his time throughout training camp so far. And speaking of linebackers, let's actually talk about Chad Muma, another guy from last year's draft class. He had a nice interception over the middle. I believe that was Trevor Lawrence's first interception of this year's camp. He tried to fit a tight one in on 7-on-7s to Calvin Ridley, but Chad Muma stepped ahead and got that interception. Daniel Thomas, another guy who's been on the team now for an extended period of time from the University of Auburn. He stepped in and had an interception on Trevor Lawrence, and we've seen Daniel Thomas be a great special teams player for this team, and I think he's going to really solidify himself another role and another roster position on the team this year. And then the last 2 defensive players I want to talk about are 2 key linebackers on this team with Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. Josh Allen, every single day of camp, has been getting in the backfield and disrupting a lot of plays. He would have had a lot of potential sacks. Obviously, these guys can't go full contact as of right now, and even with the pads going on, they still have to be somewhat cautious. But Josh Allen's been doing some great things, and then with 11-on-11s, Trayvon Walker's been doing a really good job as well too. And Doug Peterson said that he's seen some really great things from Trayvon Walker. And if you guys remember, I am extremely high on Trayvon Walker this year. I think in year 2, he's going to absolutely dominate the NFL at a Khalil Mack type of level, where we saw Khalil Mack have some flashes and some potential shown in his rookie season. Then we saw him burst out onto the scene in year 2 when he was playing for the Oakland Raiders. Trayvon Walker's just too dominant, physical, and too much of an athletic specimen to not go ahead and dominate at the next level. I'm extremely high on this guy, and I think that we're just going to see a great duo with Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker this year. Let's move on to the offensive side of the ball now. So moving on to the offense, we're going to start with quarterback at the helm, William Trevor Lawrence, aka Mr. Sunshine, the prince that was promised, Jacksonville's Jesus, whatever nickname you have for him. He still looks the part. Last year was not a mirage of what Trevor Lawrence did. He ascended himself into that upper echelon elite tier of quarterbacks, and Trevor Lawrence has looked the part yet again in training camp. Some notable notes from Trevor Lawrence: despite a few interceptions that he thrown at camp, with guys like Chad Muma and Daniel Thomas getting an interception on him, he went 7-11 on team drills a few days ago. He had multiple hookups with Evan Ingram. He had a deep completion over the middle to Tim Jones. He had some deep passes that I've seen throughout camp with guys like Zay Jones, Jamal Agnew. He had one to ETN, and then he had a few to Calvin Ridley. I heard he had one earlier this morning to Christian Kirk as well too. Obviously, Jaguar fans, including myself, want to continue to see the development and growth of Trevor Lawrence. Year 2 in this offense, year 2 under Doug Peterson, Press Taylor, and quarterbacks coach Mike McCoy. Trevor's just looked a lot more poised in the pocket, especially with his mechanics, and he's really taken a lot of control over this offense. That's something you love to see with your franchise quarterback. Moving on to some other guys, offensively speaking, that's really stood out. It's gonna be with the running back that we took this year in the draft from the University of Auburn, Tank Bigsby, and he's had a lot of snaps at the receiver position, and he's done a lot of great things coming out of the backfield throughout camp. He's shown some really strong hands, and he's going to have an integral part into this offense, and it's really looking like Tank Bigsby's not only going to be an amazing complement to a guy like Travis Etienne out of the backfield, he's going to have a really big role and focal point into this offense as well too. Talking about a few other skill position players on the offensive side of the ball for the Jaguars that have stood out, we're going to start with wide receiver Kevin Austin Jr. He's done some really great things. He actually had a touchdown earlier today from Trevor Lawrence, a deep ball, and he's done a lot of great work, what I've heard from him out of camp. And while Evan Ingram has been doing a lot of great things as well too, and especially with my own 2 eyes when I saw him on Saturday, Garrett Prince, an undrafted free agent that we signed this offseason, he's done a lot of great things, and he's got 3 touchdowns now throughout camp. He's done a lot of great work, especially in the red zone. The last 2 skill position players I want to talk about on the offensive side of the ball is going to be with Jamal Agnew. Now look, man, I love Jamal Agnew. Me and all my homies, we love Jamal Agnew, so of course I'm going to be a little bit biased here, but don't take it just from me. Take it from the coaching staff and take it from the players around him, especially a guy like Calvin Ridley, who has had nothing but high praise for a guy like Jamal Agnew. And same thing with Press Taylor, the Jaguars offensive coordinator. He said and quoted that Jamal Agnew can play all over the field in multiple positions, and Press Taylor also says that he will have a big role in this offense. Jamal Agnew is an extremely dynamic playmaker. He's going to be using a lot of jet sweeps. He's going to be used out of the backfield. He's going to be using a lot of misdirection, and yes, he's going to be used as a receiver. And speaking of him as a receiver, he had a nice deep ball today over the middle of the field for a touchdown. Probably one of the best passes from Trevor Lawrence all of camp, as he beat Andrew Wingard and Rayshawn Jenkins down the field. We know what Jamal Agnew can do on special teams. We know what he can do offensively speaking. This guy is really a gadget type of player, a Swiss Army knife, and he's going to do some great things for this Jaguars team. Jamal Agnew, big shout out to him. And the last guy I really want to talk about is with Calvin Ridley. The Jaguars and Jaguar fans were ecstatic when we were able to acquire a wide receiver 1 and an all-pro type of talent who's in the midst of his prime from the Atlanta Falcons, and essentially a fleece of a trade. And the Jaguars now have a dominant wide receiver group with guys like Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Jamal Agnew, Parker Washington. The list goes on. And Calvin Ridley is going to be the catalyst for why this Jaguars offense is going to be so potent. Expect him to go ahead and make a Stephon Diggs type of impact on Trevor Lawrence, the way Stephon Diggs did for Josh Allen back in 2020, a Jamar Chase type of impact for Joe Burrow. The list goes on with a bunch of great young quarterbacks and a dominant wide receiver, even an A.J. Brown up in Philadelphia for Jalen Hurts. And there's a few other things that I want to say about Calvin Ridley, but here's one thing that I really do want to say, and I mean no disrespect to guys like Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and the rest of the wide receiver room, but there's levels to this. Watching Calvin Ridley out there dominate and I mean dominate opposing players, and the way he just runs his routes so crisply, the way he's able to explode off the line of scrimmage, and just how agile this guy is. There's levels to it. You cannot see another receiver on the Jaguars doing exactly what Calvin Ridley does, and there's a reason he was a former All-Pro. Calvin Ridley's the real deal. I think having essentially 2 seasons off after he only played 5 games in 2021 before serving the 2022 suspension, Calvin Ridley is moving different, and he's going to be a huge part to why this Jaguars offense is going to be extremely explosive and potent. Watch out for Calvin Ridley. I mean, there's nothing else I need to say. This guy's incredible. And the last thing I really want to say to wrap up this video is it's been amazing seeing how the turnout's been at training camp. You know, I used to go to training camp every single year. I mean, really excluding the COVID year. And this was by far probably the best turnout for Jaguars training camp. Every time a big play happened, especially if Calvin Ridley got the ball, the fans were going crazy. It sounded like a real in-game environment in there. And that's what you do. You put a good product out there, you get a head coach and a quarterback that everybody believes in, and you go and prove it on the field every single Sunday, and you've got players that the Jaguars and Jaguar fans are extremely excited about. You're going to put people in those stands regardless if we have shade in that stadium or not. And this just environment and the direction of this team moving forward, it's a beautiful sight to watch. And Jags fans, just what a hell of a time it is to be a Jags fan. Let's hope that all the players continue to stay healthy, as we've seen some injuries pop up at camp across the NFL, and, you know, knock on wood for that, and you pray that these guys continue to get better. And let's just enjoy this time, enjoy this moment, and let's look forward to some Jaguars football coming in these next couple weeks. But Jags fans, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me in the channel out tremendously. Make sure you guys also go ahead and hit that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Jags fans, thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.